Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable All Lecturer Ma'am Dr. Anissa Astrid, SD MPD. Let me introduce myself. My name is Novita Angreini. I'm from PBI 4. So in this video, I would like to present my proposal. The title is The Use of Gesture in Teaching English to Young Learners, a case study of primary school in Palembang. And the research problems are, the first is, what is the purpose of teachers often use gestures in learning and teaching English to young learners? The second is, what are the types of gestures that teachers often use in teaching English to young learners? And then the third is, under what circumstance do teachers often use gestures in teaching English to young learners? And then the objective research. The research objective. Based on the problem research, the purpose of the research are, the first is to find out what the purpose of the gestures is often used in teaching English to young learners. The second is to find out what types of gestures are often used by teachers in teaching English to young learners. And then the third is to find out in what situations the teachers often use gestures in teaching English to young learners. And then the next slide is the significance of research. This study was expected to have a significant influence on the following parties. The first is for lectures. This study was expected to study gestures as part of the teaching and learning process. Therefore, as the result of research was expected to be a facility for teachers to use and modify language learning properly. And then the second is for students. This study was expected to increase student-teacher interaction, which can influence the flow of communication in the classroom. And then the third is for future researchers. This study was expected to become knowledge about the use of gestures in the teaching and learning process of English, especially for young learners. Okay, next we move to the research methodology. The first is research design. The qualitative approach method is used in this study to obtain an in-depth explanation of the use of teacher gestures in teaching English to young learners by using case study research, which can facilitate the researcher in collecting and analyzing the required data. This research can also be used to observe the characteristics of the individual unit. In this case, gestures in the student's classroom are a phenomenon that must be generalized, and the teacher is chosen to be observed to see what kind of gestures they use in the classroom. And then setting and participant. So the location of the research was in grade 4 elementary school Muhammadiyah 1 in Palembang. Because of the teacher in this classroom teach simple grammar in accordance with one of the theories adopted. The population is teacher at elementary school of Muhammadiyah 1 in Palembang, of course. And then the sample is several teachers at elementary school of Muhammadiyah 1 in Palembang who met the qualification to be interviewed in this study. The qualifications are: the first is the teacher is a native Indonesian. The second is the teacher teaches English as a foreign language in primary schools. And the third is the teacher uses English dominantly in class. And then the fourth is the teacher uses gestures in the teaching and learning process. And then the next is data collections. Researchers use two forms of data collection techniques, namely classroom observation and interview. The purpose of using the two techniques is to categorize the types of gestures used by teachers, to investigate situations in which gestures are used, and to find out the purposes for which gestures are used in teaching English to young learners. The first is class observation. The first instrument is class observation. Observations are used to find out direct reactions between teachers and students that may not be obtained during the interview session, and to find out what teachers and students say and do in natural situations. And then interview is the second instrument in this research. This instrument is considered to be helpful in obtaining in-depth information that cannot be observed during the observation session. According to Al-Wasila 2002, suggests that interviews can be conducted if the respondent doesn't understand the questions, explanations, and paraphrase. And an interview session can also let the respondent tell of something that happened in the past or will happen in the future. And according to David and Sutton 2004, page 87, states that interviewer has a list of major themes, issues, and questions to be asked in the form of a semi-structured interview. They have designed and compiled further on the use of gestures in teaching English to young learners. The next slide is data analysis. The researcher analyzes and presents the data in the form of descriptive explanation after collecting data from observation and interview. In this qualitative research, the data analysis must be simultaneous process and begins when the observation begins. According to Seidel 1987, developed the use of qualitative data analysis or QDA model in cross-examination of the data collected from these instruments. There are three parts to using the QDA model in analyzing the data. Namely, the first is paying attention, the second is collecting, and the third is thinking about interesting things. Based on QDA, the data analysis process has three special characteristics, such as: the first is iterative and progressive, which means the cycle will continue to repeat itself. The second is recursive because one part can call back to the previous part. And also the third is holographic holographic, which means that in each process contains the whole process. And the last is establishment of trustworthiness. Data that has been collected using instruments such as classroom observations with the use of video recordings that are played back, then transcribed and analyzed with the help of field notes that are already available, and interview instruments that can assist in obtaining in-depth information that cannot be observed during the observation session are then validated so that the data obtained is guaranteed to be accurate. Okay, I think that's all from my presentations. Thank you for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.